Hi, I'm going to do what I watched in November. So here we go. First is The Bridges of Madison County. This movie has become one of my favorite films of all time. I think it might be the top 20 films now, because it's amazing. I watched it for the first time last year, or this year, I think, maybe. But I've seen it 3 times now. It's good. Believe me, it's really good. And the story is sad, but it's kind of it's very realistic, I have to say, too. And it's just so good. Next is Oh, I Love You Man. This is probably my favorite comedy. This is one that I can laugh. I watch and I laugh at the same parts every single time. And I love Jason Segel and I love Paul Rudd. And so them together is brilliant, and they worked off with each other so well. There's a lot of improv between the both of them in this film, and their chemistry was great. There's a scene where they're at dinner, they're having fish tacos, and they have this whole conversation, and it's a completely improv, ad lib, whatever. It's like Jason and Paul just like completely, there was no script, no lines for that scene, and they just completely just ad lib the whole thing, and they start laughing in the scene at each other because they're being hilarious, and I love it. I just think they have like great chemistry, and you need to watch it because I think it's hilarious, obviously. Um, Next is Drugstore Cowboy, Matt Dillon. So this is probably one of the best films ever. For some reason, it's really heavy, and I don't know why, because it's like one disc, but it's like for some reason it feels heavy. I don't know why, but it's really good. I recommend it. The first time I saw this, I wanted to own it, and I hadn't owned it, and now I do, and it's great because I only can watch it whenever I'm like, I want to watch it. So, yeah, it's one of those movies that just kind of like stayed with me after I watched it, and I wanted to see it again. Next is Bonnie and Clyde. This is movie that I don't watch that often. I don't know why. I'll kind of forget that I own it sometimes, and then I remember that I own it, and I'm like, oh, oh yeah, I have that. Um, it's so good. Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway were great together. It had Gene Hackman. It had a cameo by Gene Wilder. I think it was his first movie. Um, and it was just great. Except, there's there's the real Ruth, and she hated the actress who played her because she said she sounded like, she sounded annoying. She didn't like. She said she did not scream and cry, and she didn't do act the way that they portrayed her in the film, and that they misportrayed her husband too, who did really die, was really killed. So he couldn't really be like, oh, well, it wasn't how I was, but she was like, he wasn't like that. Um, there was another guy in here who was actually two people, but they put him in one character, and one of the guys sued the movie for false representation of his character, and he actually won outside of court. And then, no, not him. Then there was a police officer. That police officer won out of court. There's a sheriff in this who they say in the movie he set it up to kill Bonnie and Clyde. It was his idea, and there's this scene where they handcuff him and they like take pictures with him and they harass him and all this stuff. But in real life, that never happened. He didn't even know who they were until the day that he shot them, like he helped kill them, because he was retired at that point, and so he was just like not following the stuff that was going on. And they called him the day that they were gonna do this, shoot him, and told him that they needed his help. And so he was like, okay. So that's pretty much all that he was that he did. So in the movie, they showed him as like vengeance and like he wanted to kill them because they embarrassed him and whatever. But that didn't happen. And like he is the one who he also sued and he did win outside of court. So there's like a lot of legal problems after this movie was released from the people that they were showed in the film. So they got a lot wrong, obviously, because they had a lot of problems, a lot of legal problems. But it's still a good movie, and I love Bonnie and Clyde. I think one of my favorite couples in history. So yeah. Next to My Big Fat Greek Wedding. This movie is always so funny. Like, I always die laughing from this film. My favorite scenes are the butt cake scene and the shoulder twins scene because I gotta think of Andrea Martin played Attila. She is one of the funniest people ever, and the shoulder twin. Yes, inside they filmed my twin. That whole thing was ad-libbed by Andrea Martin, and it's I don't know where it came from. I don't know why she thought about it, but I'm glad she did because it's one of the funniest scenes ever in a movie. And then the butt cake part. Oh, it's a cake. Whenever I have butt cake or anyone mentions it or anyone has it, I always think of that scene, and it's just great. Oh, it's a cake. And then she says, there's a hole in this cake. So yeah. Next is October Sky. Another one that they completely embellished. That embellished this story so much that it's not even really the story. It's like this is like the basic. He wanted to go to space. That's true, but like so much of what in the movie that they showed didn't happen. So I'm kind of like not really based on the true story. It's just kind of like based around this idea that Homer had. There were actually 6 boys, not 4. But one of them actually passed away before this movie was even, like, he died years and years before the movie was done. And I don't know if the family didn't want to release him and allow them to use him in the movie or whatever. But, yeah, and there's another one that they didn't use. But there was another one in there, Odell. Yeah. And I think he had... No, he didn't. It was like the other guy who died, and I believe he had lupus or something. But anyway, it's a good movie. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. But you have to go into it knowing that it's pretty much BS. Like, if you look at the information and you find out the history that actually happened, you're gonna be like, they did not really get anything right. But I love it anyway. I think the message is great. I love it, and I love that Homer's friends helped him so much. Like, they were in high school. They had things they could have been doing, but they spent their time helping Homer with his rockets, and I think that's great. And I think it's great friendship. And they did not win college scholarships. That was not true. They did go to college. Every one of them went to college, but they did not get scholarships. Next is When Harry Met Sally. My favorite romantic comedy, and again, it kills me. It's so funny. And it's sweet, and I love it. Next is Love and Basketball. I hadn't seen this in years, and I used to be obsessed with it, and I don't know why I stopped watching it. And there's a lot of movies that I haven't seen. October Sky, I haven't seen in years. And I was like, I want to watch them now. Like, why haven't I want to watch it? But Love and Basketball is still as good as I remember it being. So, yes. And then I watched I Love Lucy, the complete first season. I love these covers that they did, the redesigns, and I love the back. I just think they're really nice. And obviously, I Love Lucy is hilarious. It's one of my favorite shows. There are people who criticize it because they're like, oh, Dozy or Ricky was controlling. If you watch this show, he really isn't at all. I mean, it was a different time and the man was the head of the house, but ultimately Lucy ran everything. He thought he ran it, he didn't. She did. And she always got everything she wanted. She would be told, you can't go be in the show. She always found a way. One of the most determined characters on TV, and she was very strong and very outspoken and brave and crazy. And Ricky, for the most part, just sat there and was like, you're crazy, okay, it's fine. You can, and whenever she did get one over on him, he didn't really get mad. He kind of got even. He let a kid get even, or he just be like, okay. So, I mean, it's not as outdated as people think, I think. But it's funny and it's great because I watch a lot of classic movies, and there's some references to old Hollywood, and I know what they're talking about, and I'm like, I know you. But there's a lot of actors that they talk about that I've never heard of because they're kind of like obscure actors, I think. So I don't know the references sometimes about some actors, but one of them that I do know. And I'm like, oh, I know what you're talking about. So, yeah. That is all. Good.